And welcome to another Blab from B2B R&D. I'm Ellen Williams, CEO and co-founder, joined here, as always, happily. Well, I'm happy he's joining me. I don't know. By Craig Yaris, the COO and co-founder of B2B. And it's noon, so we are rolling at the lab. How are you today, Craig?
I'm good. How are you, Ellen?
I'm good. I'm good. We've gotten a good start to the morning, and now it's time to talk digital marketing.
Okay.
Well, we talk digital marketing all the time, but now it's time for us.
Yeah, I was going to say, it better be new. Talk digital marketing. I don't think we've done that before.
Yeah, not even today.
Ever. Yeah.
So one of the topics I wanted to chat about today was content. And content is obviously a big topic, but specifically two things. The fact that a lot of things that we're reading about content and how important it's going to be in 2016, but not just the delivery of a lot of content, the type of content, the authenticity, the realness, the transparency, whatever buzzword you want to throw in there, about the content and what people are producing. And you and I were talking earlier today about it being Good Morning America. They're celebrating their 40th, they're calling it birthday. And they brought in all the previous hosts. And they're live, it's a live morning TV show. And the majority of the time, they're sitting behind a desk and everything works out pretty well. I mean, they've been doing this for 40 years, right? They'd get it by now. But because they were trying something so different and the studio, they had to use more of it and so on and so forth. It was fun to watch, but didn't necessarily go as smoothly as they wanted. And what I found very endearing about that was how much great content they were producing that was authentic. They were real. I was experiencing it with them. So similar to Blab being real time, and all the live streaming that's going on, you get to experience with them as they're creating content and being themselves. And as I said to you earlier, the program this morning made me laugh. It made me cry. It made me feel, and they kept saying it, it's a family, it's a family. And it really did work that way. So I'd like to chat with you and anyone else about content, good content, how to create good content, and what's really going to resonate. Ready, go.
Is that all? And you know what's funny? You mention authenticity, and everybody uses that word when it comes to social media. You have to be your authentic self, and it's the opportunity to be your authentic self. And I think it's terrific. But what does that mean for people is a big question. I like this platform because it is, I'm going to air quote, get ready for it, authentic. You and I have great conversations just about every time we talk. So being on Blab is no different, but it gives people an insight into some of our thinking and how we react and how we act. And just that in its nature, I think, is authentic. It's authentic that I can see your living room couch and people can see the mess behind me, and I just noticed my inadvertent, but you can't tell what it is, so I won't mention the product, but my inadvertent product placement bag in the back there. No, you don't see it. And that's the kind of thing that is authentic, and I think that draws people together. And what was the question?
So if we're talking about authentic content, live streaming video is one element of it. And you said, this platform is great for that. Video is obviously growing in popularity. I've been hearing about you needing to use video for many years, and it's here without a doubt. You have to be using video.
Sure.
Some video can be very highly produced. Does that lessen the authenticity of it?
I totally think it does. Authentic has a dictionary definition, and I'd be happy to look it up because I don't know what it is, off the top of my head. But I think the minute you start to get into serious editing and graphics and the whole 9 yards, of video production, it's sort of like saying a TV show, a sitcom is authentic. It's not authentic. It's a sitcom. It's what it is. That's why when we post the blabs to both YouTube and our site, I don't do editing to them, because I think it's the authenticity that really is a great thing. Yes, we start talking about authenticity now. We could end up in 30 minutes talking about robots again, like we've done in the past. That's an authentic conversation. If we edit it down, it's no longer that. So I do think the high production value sort of takes away some of that authenticity. I do.
Okay. So how do you acquire or enable content to be authentic if there's no video involved?
That's a great question. I have a friend, and I've used this example before, and I sort of feel bad using it, but I think it's a good one. She's an attorney, takes in and trains support dogs from puppy. And there's no video involved. It's images and it's text that they share through their newsletter, through their Facebook page, through their Twitter accounts. So it's authentic. It's the dog ripping up, hopefully not actually client papers, but they'll post something like, uh-oh, the dog ate our homework. That's authentic. It's cute, but there's no video. It's just a picture and text. So I think if you act on these, whatever platform, even from blogging, if you speak in a blog the way you talk and don't get mired down in the language of, the English kings, then you're authentic, and you
the language of language.
Yeah. And I think just being who you are, that stuff comes through. I really do. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think you're right. I think it comes down to presenting the opinions and sometimes facts that you use when you're backing up or putting forward really education, information, the types of content that is going to resonate with any audience. People want to learn. People want to learn very different ways. So you've got video, you've got images, you've got text. But I think you're right. It's important to speak the way you speak, whether it's now, live, or if it's in written text, especially as we move into 2016 and we're seeing more and more sponsored content being more of the way not only the recipient is going to receive it, but the way in which the advertisers are going to benefit more. Mm-hmm. The old way of this quote unquote old way of advertising is sort of falling off because more people are interested in information and content, and sometimes even sponsored content is not always identified as advertising, not necessarily by the platform, but by the reader, right?
That's absolutely. I was on a blab just before this one talking about Snapchat because I think it's an area that I'm sort of weak in. I had said to somebody just before that, I think that it'd be easier for me to master an app than Snapchat is. And one of the things that they mentioned was content on Snapchat may be sponsored but not listed as sponsored. So it's sometimes hard to even tell because of the network not being upfront about it. Now, I don't know if that's true. I can't say because I can't figure the app out. That's a whole nother conversation.
Well, does everything on Snapchat, I wonder if everything works the same way. And what I mean by that is it's temporary content.
Yes.
So is the sponsored content on Snapchat also just temporary content?
I don't know. Good question. I don't know. I do know that advertising on Snapchat can be much more expensive than any other network. In fact, I think they had mentioned to be considered a Snapchat advertiser, we're talking a spend of 700,000+. Yeah. So it's not a place that the small business is going to be advertising. So
That's very interesting. I'm sorry to cut you off. So
no, please.
my daughters, I have twin daughters who will be 21 soon. Um, they use Snapchat, and my daughter has sent me snaps, and I try, but not very successfully. And when I started telling her maybe about 6 months ago that there was a lot of conversation about Snapchat for business, her first thought to me was, "Oh, don't advertise to me here." Like that was a separate world. When I'm online, you advertise to me. When I'm doing other things, advertise to me. Don't advertise to me here, because it's Snapchat from those who use it. It's a very personal, and I think that's because the content goes away. The platform, the content goes away. I know there's conversations about screen capture and things like that, but it's a done, one and done, like a conversation that isn't recorded. Yes. You had it, you're done. And so interesting that the price tag for advertising on Snapchat is so high, which would, I think, limit the number of ads, but yet allow Snapchat to get a hefty revenue. And they're so specific on the demographic that's using Snapchat, as you and I are both, testifying. Well, I don't know. So it's typically the younger portion of the millennials. So if that's your target, I mean, it's almost like, pardon the expression, it's like shooting fish in a barrel, right? They're there. We know they're there. They're using it. So if that's my specific audience and I've got the money, I'm dropping a chunk of money on advertising on Snapchat, because there may be a high ROI there because there's not a lot of competition.
You're absolutely right. And it's big brands. It's not small. One of the morning shows I listen to here in Florida is the 95.5. It's Wild 95, but it's Elvis Duran. He broadcasts on Z100 in New York, but he's part of the iHeartRadio network. Mm-hmm. And so they push the iHeartRadio channel on Snapchat, and Elvis Duran himself pushes his and he's not young, but he's very much into Snapchat because that's maybe his audience, maybe younger than me, although I enjoy the show immensely, and my son and I will listen to it when I drive him to school. So it really is, I love that, shooting fish in a barrel. It's a captive audience. It's their audience. So it's an interesting platform. And it's, as I've learned, it is that much more authentic platform. I always considered Instagram to be that way, but Snapchat is really, somebody had mentioned on the blab that I was watching, that it's where they go to find out about people, really learn about people, the real person, not the Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever person. It's the real person. I thought that was very interesting. So that may be the most authentic platform there is. I don't know.
Because it doesn't hang out. Because you're not building that online profile, and
right.
Does everything make sense? Even at Instagram, when I started using Instagram, the concept was, this is what I'm doing, taking a shot of where you are, mm-hmm. and really communicating sort of your journey. And now I was at an event in May, actually, with a presentation, and she showed Instagram online. And she said, look at this profile and look at all the images and how they start to tell a story. And that became very brand oriented without the actual logos, mm-hmm. but the color schemes and the types of pictures. And so that changed my thinking about Instagram. And I tried to sort of do both of them. So they're more branded, so they have the similar look and feel, but I take them as I travel. But now you look at Instagram and you've got one of my favorite things that are really popular, right, is the pictures with words in it. Yep. And so that's definitely, the authenticity of Instagram has changed over time, potentially because businesses came in and needed to use it a different way, right? Same with Pinterest. Pinterest was what it was until business came in. Right. And now, Pinterest for business. Ooh, how do you do that? Snapchat, and now it's, they're starting again, Snapchat for Business.
Yep.
But interesting, the authenticity of Snapchat, maybe because there isn't longevity there.
Maybe. And there was a question there from Mr. Wonderful, who was asking how you make a Snapchat story. And unfortunately, as I think both Ellen and I said a little bit earlier, maybe before you joined us, neither of us really are that familiar with Snapchat to even answer that question right now. I've actually, after the Blab I watched this morning, have made it a goal maybe over the weekend to really try and use Snapchat and see if I can learn how to.
Does that mean I'm going to get a bunch of snaps?
You very well may. I'm just saying, I'm warning you in advance. Mm-hmm. I don't know. You may not. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
Yeah. So the story at Snapchat, I'm gonna plead the fifth as Craig did. I really don't have a succinct answer to this, but I think from everything we've read, it's the advertising has that sort of Snapchat storyline to it as opposed to the users.
No, users can make stories also. Learn this just a little bit. I'm sorry,
you're right. You can post a story and it lasts for like 24 hours.
Yes.
That's right. You're right.
And I was, during the Blab, I'm sitting with my phone and looking at Snapchat, and I consider myself fairly intelligent, and I just am looking at it going, why can't I? Why can't I figure out how this works?
I think it's mostly community based.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's a search function.
There is
now. Okay, so when I started playing with it, it wasn't so easy to find people. You had to know.
Oh, it's not easy.
Their handle, I don't know what they call it at Snapchat, but you had to know that to find them.
You still do.
Random search. Like I can't, like on Twitter, I can search and find people. Right. So you still can't do that at
No,
Snapchat.
There is a search, but you need to know
what you're searching for.
They had mentioned a channel, I don't know, called CNET Snaps. Now, I'm a big fan of CNET, big fan of the technological site. And so I put CNET into the search and nothing came up. You had to put in CNET Snaps to find them and subscribe to them. And you're doing it right now, aren't you?
And so that's what I'm saying. You have to know exactly what you're looking for in order to find them and then connect with them in some way. I don't know. Yeah. And I apologize. I don't even know if it's like.
So I noticed you're doing it.
I'm playing, just to see.
You're doing it right now, yeah. And I don't know if the Snapchat stories, I do think the Snapchat stories go public as opposed to the, I guess, specific sending one person a snap. They are public, and they're public for 24 hours from what I understand. And one of the things...
That's right. That's right. I know they're up for 24 hours, but what does public mean? Does that mean all your friends can see it?
I think that means...
Not everyone can see it?
I think that means everybody can.
Okay.
I'm getting some feedback now.
Oh, I'm still okay.
Oh, I wonder whose it is.
Okay, let's just keep rolling. So thank you for the Snapchat questions.
Yes.
We are being less than novice.
No, I'd like to say, novice. I don't want to go less than because we were able to answer the stories question.
Okay, I'll give you that. We had some answer to some element of the question.
Right. So I'm going with that, okay?
All right. But, we got to Snapchat talking about the development of content over the next year and the importance that we're reading. Lots of places are putting on content, and rightly so. Mm-hmm. If you think back, I don't know how many years to sort of the birth of business on the internet, they had, and I used to write for one, e-zines, they called them.
I remember those.
right? But it was mostly journal, and I used to get paid. I used to get paid decent money to write for some of these.
Really?
I know, right? Who knew? Because they were just an extension from print magazines, and they understood that the content, they understood back then, magazines and journalists, that the writing online was different, that you had to address it just slightly differently, but they were going for the professional writers. And then over time, of course, blogging and social media has turned everybody into a potential writer. And so there's lots of content. And I think, the wealth of content is great, being able to have multiple sources to get clarity on things and to confirm, yes, I read this in several different places. Because, I mean, if we even look at news, news television stations have their bias. So if you only listen to one television station, you're going to develop, opinions that are one-sided. So that was great. But now there's such a more than a wealth of content, there's like bulge of content. I don't know what else to call it.
It's a bulge of content.
But you know what I mean? It's just like
everywhere.
It's everywhere. And I think along the way we lost the value, that the content doesn't always carry value.
That's true.
And then, the advertising and all the types of advertising that the internet has gone through. And so now here we reside, hopefully a little smarter, although we could have that conversation too, a little smarter about how we use the internet, and a little smarter about what we want and what makes sense. And so, I'm on the bandwagon for 2016 as the year of content, but good, relevant, engaging content is, I think, finally going to win the day.
So you use the terms good, relevant, engaging content. How does authenticity fit into that? Because we started this talking about authentic content. So is good, relevant, now I already forgot the last word. Is that authentic content? Engaging. Is that authentic?
I think authentic or authenticity threads through that.
Okay.
So you and I could do this blab, and we could be very authentic, but we could be talking about something that isn't relevant. We could be not doing a good job.
Sure.
And we might not even be engaging. I mean, if there are two boring people hanging out at Blab, drinking and randomly saying things, you have authenticity.
Yes, you do.
But you don't have good. It doesn't have to be great. It just has to be, good. You don't have relevant and you don't have engaging. So I think authenticity is a thread through all of that. So the content next year, when I say it has to be good, I mean it has to be written well. When I read it, keep your verb tenses correct, keep your paragraph structure. I mean, write a good piece. It doesn't have to be long, but it has to be written so that it's understandable. It has to be relevant, and that's directed to your audience. So I could read something totally irrelevant to me, but that doesn't mean it's not relevant to the people they're trying to reach. And then engaging. So I need to have something come of it, whether it's education, learning something, laughing, smiling. I was, guilty pleasure. I was just watching, I went through a website that had then and now pictures of television casts.
Oh, I
so
love
what
those.
They look like, right? So so that was engaging to me. It was good because the pictures were well done. It was relevant because it interested me, but it was engaging. And it was authentic because they were very candid pictures, so that it hit the mark even though it was entertainment.
How is it engaging? And I guess the question is, how do you define engaging? To me, engaging would be causing the audience to take an action. So if we write a blog post, the engagement aspect is the tweet, the post, the like, the share, the comment. If I can't see you laugh and shake your head, did it happen? So you engaged because you looked at it and went, oh my God, I can't believe that that's what, so-and-so looks like today. But did it really happen? Because you probably didn't share it, You didn't tweet, you didn't like, you didn't, whatever. That's like you said, a guilty pleasure. You don't want to tell people you did it. We've just told lots of people that we both do that.
That's okay.
But what was their engagement?
Really good question. So from an engagement standpoint, I agree with what you said. Yes, I was laughing. Yes. So that is engaging because it sparked something, right? A laugh or whatever. There was a level of physical engagement because each photo I had to click through to get to the next one, which is a lot of what I see going on the internet, where they offer, a lot, they offer a list of things, but there's one, and every time you click, it's a new page refresh, and the advertisers get another view. On some of the videos, autoplay, and I'm like, where's that noise coming from? And right, so I'm not a big fan of the structure of those sites, but I wanted to get through all of them because they didn't list all the television shows that they had pictures of. So I was engaged to get to the end. I wanted to see what the next one was. Now, they had a very the purpose of that was really their advertising, right? To get people to see the advertising. Different businesses, and you're correct. A business like ours, where we're currently not making money through advertising because that's not the business model. We would want an engagement that forwarded our message, that got people to subscribe. We would want a call to action kind of engagement, versus, they were engaging in a way that they wanted to be. They got me to click through all those pages. So there was a level of connection, but a different one than I think you would want to see, and certainly our business and the majority of the businesses that we've worked with in the past as well would have a different definition of engagement.
Yep, I agree. And I think that's important for companies to define those terms before they go at it. What is good content? You used an example of verb tenses all matching, I think you said, and, sentence structure. To me, those things are less important in a good piece. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I don't think they're important, because in my own writing, I'd like to think I do that. But when I'm reading it, what's a good piece of content is not based upon solely those grammatical things. It's, wow, this caught my attention. Yes, they dropped a verb tense, but it didn't affect the whole piece. So I think for a content creator, what is that good piece of content going to look like? What is the engagement going to look like? What is the authentic aspect of it? If you're just writing a piece that quotes stats for 600 words, that may be authentic, but it's not authentic that's going to attract somebody, I don't think.
Right. So then you have the other elements of engagement. Is something like that engaging? Maybe not. So that doesn't qualify as what we're talking about. Right. So I had said good, relevant, and engaging. And I think what you just said might have blurred the lines between good and engaging. Because you said, I want to read something that I like to read. I think that's the engagement part. And in all honesty, if I'm reading something word for word and the verb tense is off, it's just confusing to me. Because then you disconnect the brain. You disconnect my brain, but you disconnect the flow of information. If it happened before and now all of a sudden your verb tense is now, it could be confusing. Did that come first, or is this incorrect? Are we still talking about the past? So as a previous freelance writer, back in the early 90s, editors were all over that. So maybe that's why I carry that forward. But to your point, I'm not necessarily reading word for word.
Right.
on, right? I mean, people are skimming. No one's really reading, and that's another problem, right? No one's really reading. And so the actions people are taking are based on stuff they read. Here, I get my okay, I get my little quotes of things they read, but really they just scanned, and maybe they misunderstood. And I think that goes back to why content is going to be so important, but it needs to be good, it needs to be relevant, it needs to be engaging. And we started the hour talking about, video and live streaming and the authenticity that this type of platform offers for content. But you may not always have that opportunity. Your content may just be text, in which case, now you have to deal with people who are skimming and not reading.
And there's a comment about dumbing it down for video. I don't think so. I actually think video enables us to smarten it up. I think the content needs to be lowered a little bit, less technical for people to be engaged in it. If it gets too technical, I think people get bored very quickly. But video, because you're engaging more than just the one sense, the visual. It's the visual, it's the auditory, it's the whatever other senses would it be engaged. I think it enables us to sort of bring content a little bit more in depth through video. That's at least how I feel.
Yep, I agree. And of course, anyone who's willing to enter the conversation, we welcome that. I think also, rather than dumbing it down, I just keep it short. I mean, especially if it's going to be a little technical, and it depends on the audience and what they're trying to achieve as well.
Yep.
But if you are going a little technical, smaller bites of information that are more digestible might be the way to go. And again, if people aren't reading, you don't want to do anything terribly long either. And welcome, Steve.
How are you, Steve? This is becoming a ritual, I think.
It is every week. Well, you always come up with an interesting conversation, you see, so I feel compelled to join eventually.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Pleasure. So yeah, I'm also curious about Snapchat, scratching my head. As I have been with Periscope in the last week, spent a week on Periscope now, and I guess the comment that brought me in was, how do you? I'm putting it a different way now. How do you get somebody's attention long enough to get a response out of them? That's really what it comes down to, isn't it?
I definitely think that's, we talked about engagement before. I do think it's that response engagement that we want. And if we had that answer, we'd be able to sell it for probably, billions specifically. And I think like on Snapchat, how do you get a response? You have, seconds to do that, at most 24 hours. I
think repetition. I'm not sure you phrased it interestingly. How do you get someone's attention long enough? And I think regardless of how you're reaching people, it's never a one and done. It's multiple touches. I mean, the buzzword now is omni-channel, right? So it's not just that they saw an ad or they read one piece of content. It's the fact that you engaged them, whether it's a video, a photo, or anything else. You engage them enough for them to come back or to find you elsewhere, or to maybe sign up for something that's free. So I'll use us for example. You come to our website, you read a blog post, you're interested in things we have to say. We have a free email. You sign up for the free email. You get a few of our emails. Maybe you connect with us on LinkedIn. Now there's engaging content, but there's also multiple touch points, because I don't think one and done works regardless of how you're reaching out.
But isn't that take it back to traditional advertising? Even when you went back before this whole digital internet-y thing, you couldn't throw an ad in a newspaper once and say, well, I tried. Because it still was, the ad had to be in the newspaper, it had to be in the magazine and in the coupon thing, and it had to be maybe on TV and maybe on a billboard. So you still had to build up those touches. We just get to, okay, I'm going to change what I was going to say because it could go bad real quick. Our touches are just very different nowadays, but I think that's an old school requirement still. 7 to 10 touches necessary for people to do business with you. And I think somebody had said it was like 8 to 12 touches in one of our previous blogs.
Yeah, it changed.
So like Ellen said, it's the repetition. It's the Snapchat, the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, LinkedIn, even maybe Google Plus, which is just redesigned for a mobile audience. It's all of those things put together.
Google Plus.
Yeah.
Really?
Did you say Twitter and Facebook?
Yes.
Did you say Pinterest?
I didn't say
Periscope
Pinterest.
and Blab?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, say
But-
email and print? Yeah. The good news is, of everything, we're laughing because the list goes on, but you don't have to be everywhere, right? The key is, where's your audience? How do you need to connect with them? But back to your point about even in print and advertising, back in the early 90s, I was working with several of the consultants, and we took out an ad. I think it was either the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, because they had a Thursday technology day was their section, right? And so we took an ad in the technology section, and it was small, really small. But we were told you can't just do it once. You have to be there in that section over and over and over for people to gain the trust that you're going to be there next week. I saw you last week. You're going to be there next week. So we didn't do multiple different magazines, but we stuck, 2-3 months. We stuck with the same ad in the same location every Thursday. We're doing the same thing now, ironically. We're, the last few weeks we are Thursday, and we are pleased to see Steve repeatedly, being on board. And, I think this is the next wave of building that trust and continuity. And I think, to your point, Craig, what you can do now digitally, those multiple touches can happen in a much shorter span of time, because we can talk now, and I can click on your name, and all of a sudden now I'm following you on Twitter, and then maybe I direct message you, and all of a sudden you get something from me on your phone, and that can happen in a matter of minutes. Yep.
It's a very different, we did something, I worked with a franchise, and we did something very similar to that. We were in the Wall Street Journal. They had a franchising business section I want to say it was Thursdays. And to actually get anything out of it, it needed to be a repetitive ad. Yeah. And you're talking Wall Street Journal, that's big dollars, and I couldn't tell you if the ad was successful.
That was the point I wanted to make. We've touched on the traditional route. I don't see why the traditional route is invalid. So in the traditional...
It's not.
Right. So if you had a series of adverts in the same place, you just tweak the coupon code, and then you get a feel for how it's going over time. So why... I'm sure we are, but that's what we should be doing on Snapchat, Periscope, everything. It should be coming back to a place that uniquely says, this was the response that I got from this one time. Yeah?
Yeah.
I totally agree. There is, I mean, on Twitter, you can certainly track how your tweets are doing, who's seen them, the interaction you're getting. There is no, to my knowledge, Snapchat analytics are not something available to us general public. They're available to the big time advertisers. So we won't know, and from what I've learned, you won't know who's viewed your stories. So it's hard to really get that information to know if they're interacting with you on Snapchat. I don't have, we have YouTube analytics, but I don't think I know specifically who's watched the videos on YouTube, who's watched them on our website, other than through Google Analytics. I don't know Do I know on Facebook
So
who's seen our?
we're monitoring traffic, but we're talking now more about attribution, right? And so if there's no analytics out there that's going to give it to us, we have to sort of create it ourselves. And funny enough, Craig and I were talking about this morning. So if we relate it to Snapchat, if you can create a snap that has some coupon code, then the use of that code directly relates back to that snap, and you do a different one where everywhere you go. If there's a way for you to, okay, so here's a story I used to tell all the time, and it's very simple. A friend of mine went to get her nails done at a place.
I know this story.
And it was just been bought by I can't remember his name. Anyway, we'll call him Leo. So this guy named Leo owns the store, and she's getting her nails done, and people are coming in and they go, Leo, I love you. Leo, I love how my nails look, and Leo, I love coming here. And she said, Leo, you're not that good. What's going on? And every time someone came in and said a different phrase, he had a piece of paper in his hand and he would mark off how many times he heard a specific phrase, because he used them separately. He put one phrase in an email, one phrase on Facebook, and a different phrase on Twitter. And so as they came in, he would understand which one was being more effective. So a very high-tech, low-tech combination way to do it, but it's that simple. From an attribution standpoint, if you are able to create uniqueness within each of those touch points, you're able to track them, and then combine that with the traffic. You can start to see, I've gotten, I received 10 people coming from YouTube, and 2 of them used the specific code that was in the video I put on YouTube or the comments I put on YouTube. And now you start to see, okay, if I had 10 and 2 of them, I got 20% business came from that YouTube channel. So that's
the problem.
The
problem you have with that, though,
rather than automating it, but it's still a way to track.
But the problem with that is that's really meant to track, I'm going to use the term sales.
Conversion.
How do you track trust? How do you track trust? So when we talk about building the trust, if I don't know who's seen the Snapchat, the Instagram, the Facebook post, Pinterest, Google Plus, LinkedIn, if I don't see and know everybody who's done that, I can't attribute their signing up for our newsletter or our research database to any platform. It makes it hard to really gauge that sort of engagement when it's not with a coupon code. And Snapchat especially, because I don't know for the average, you and I and Steve, our Snapchats are not going to be sales directed. They're going to be more personal.
Until you build that network.
Maybe.
And again, we're focusing on Snapchat, and you have to remember the audience of Snapchat is the lower section of millennials. So, and probably the beginning of the next generation. Millennials, the lowest is 15 years of age. And now 13, 12, they all have phones. So this is part of the way they're communicating. So if that's your audience, then it's far beyond putting a code. It's understanding what content in your snap is going to resonate with them in the first place. Because as I said earlier, you're disrupting my daughter's life while she's on Snapchat. She doesn't want to be advertised to. That's disruptive. Right. And it was originally with Facebook. I mean, the advice we used to give 2 years ago was don't disrupt the news feed. Don't be the buy now, big sale. Be just like everything else. Now they're called sponsored ads when you're just like everyone else. But that was the communication we had. Don't be disruptive, or you're not going to be welcome in the news feed. So it's figuring out how businesses need to create snaps that make sense.
Yeah. Can I just make a point? The thing that's totally wrong with that sentence is advertised to. Okay, it's nobody wants to be advertised to ever, really, unless no, they never do. It's being where the conversation is. to match the conversation, because it is advertising that you're going to get the response you want, but it's not advertising because you're not interrupting, you are part of.
I agree with that.
So the question is, and I think potentially this question may still be up in the air, how do you do that on Snapchat?
Well, you need to, this is what I've been doing on Periscope the last week. I've just sat there, well, laid there actually in bed most of the time, trying to get all the different hours in, to...
Okay, now we've got the visual. I appreciate
sorry about that. Sorry about that. Just trying to see what are they talking about, because it's pointless me coming in, saying, hey, I'm all about this, and we don't care. I mean, sometimes there is first mover, yes, but yeah, being where the conversation is. So do you have any insights as to what they're snapping about other than themselves? Do we have that yet?
My best guess is that that's all they're snapping about. I think that's the premise of Snapchat, is to have those personal conversations. Anything I've ever seen where my daughter, is communicating and I'm sort of looking over her shoulder, are those little snippets of, hey, look where I am. Hey, I went here. It's almost what Instagram used to be, because you're not in the room, and you could be 2 rooms away or you could be 200 miles away, but they want you to be part of the experience. That's my take on Snapchat.
No, that's excellent.
I agree.
So hang on. So in those personal conversations, then their interests are going to crop up. So that's the route in.
Yeah.
That it very well could be.
But they're there and gone. It's a very different platform. We were talking about this earlier. The fact that snaps are content that are short-lived, even the longest one being 24 hours, if they choose to put it as a story. How do you understand what that conversation is?
I was very privileged to be part of a conversation yesterday. I take notes, everything we're saying. And there's a there's so
much for content not living on.
Yeah, fine.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. So there's an archive. You can archive your Twitter chat with Storify. Have you ever? I haven't used it yet, but I came across this.
I have never used it, but I've been part of several Storify stories through events, usually related to events, expos, things of that nature.
Right. So that's tweet listening, really. So why couldn't there be Snapchat listening, whatever that would be called?
Because the things don't last. Twitter, everything that you tweet is actually indexed not only by Twitter, but by Google. So those things are still here. I could go back to find my first tweet. I can't go back and see if I've had any snaps.
But you could be recording.
No. Unless I screen capture it, the snaps disappear. They're gone. So there really is no theoretical, air quotes again, record of the Snapchats. I can't go to your Snapchat channel and see what you did yesterday. If it's gone, it's gone. So there's not even any data to mine.
What about the replays? If I buy replays, do I have to replay them instantly? Like I play it and then I want to replay it right there and then that's it? I don't get it.
I don't think they last forever. I don't think, a month from now I can go back and replay something. The beauty, when Snapchat came on the scene, their big thing was the content disappears. So, somebody had mentioned in that blab I was on that, their original purpose was regarding more promiscuous photos to be able to be shared because they disappeared.
Right. Why would anybody ever do that, by the way?
That's a whole nother set of conversations.
On this platform, look at how difficult it is to find people. You have to know their name to find them. So that's why this, that platform is pretty buttoned up. You ask, why would people do that? Have you heard of chat roulette?
No, sorry, this all just washes over my head.
Chat roulette. Chat roulette's an old one, actually, but it's sort of similar to this. You just sort of sit there and people come in and out if they want to chat with you, and you never know. It's chat roulette, so you never know who's on the other side of the chat, and you can connect and go, no thanks, and leave. It really revolves like that. It's the right name for it. But many of people at Chat Roulette are being more, we'll call it promiscuous or open or intimate or whatever. So Snapchat was very inviting because you couldn't find me if you didn't know me, and whatever I was doing was here and gone. Right.
And I could share it with just specific people. So I have my Snapchat that only I guess the general settings are only my friends can see my snaps. So people I'm connected with. The stories are different. They're, I think, public for 24 hours. So if I choose to send Ellen a snap directly, only Ellen will see it, and only for a certain amount of time, and then it's gone.
Right. Yeah. And you have to know what my Snapchat name is to find me. And you can't even search for half of it. You have to know the whole thing. And then when you put that in and find that person, then it's the same process. You asked to be friends, and they have to say yes. And
no, I think I can just be your friend.
Okay.
I can follow you without you, similar to Twitter. So there doesn't need to be that, I'll call it the Facebook reciprocity. I followed a couple of people off that Snapchat Blab, and one of them followed me back, some didn't. So if, I don't know if
public, that they would even see anything.
Right, that's true. It's very confusing. That's a platform that I'm telling you, I'm going to try and spend some time and learn to use it.
So are we concluding? Complete waste of time then. Bye.
No, you see, I don't think Snapchat is a complete waste of time. And everything I'm hearing and reading says that it's the complete opposite of that, that it's the next great frontier. We need the Starship Enterprise to get in there and explore it, because it is, I think, and I think it's still early enough that people who are jumping on that bandwagon are going to be the early adopters still. It's been around a while, but it's still early.
Do you think it's going to continue to be the same age demographic?
No, I think what's going to happen is what happens to everything else. We old people are going to co-opt it and start to use it, and the younger people are going to go, screw what's this, next? What's next? And it's the next thing that comes along. I think that's what's going to happen. I do.
Interesting. You had mentioned you were at Periscope. Now, Periscope is different than Snapchat.
Very different, yes.
So, talk to us about what you've been doing on Periscope, laying in bed.
It's only because, unfortunately, I'm so busy, I never get the time. I'd love to be doing it other times. I did do it in other times, but and I've done it every day now, so I have a feel. And Periscope is very different at the weekends to the weekdays. It's used like it should be used at the weekends. People get out and about.
What does that mean?
Periscope, if you think of a periscope, it's looking out at the world. But what a lot of people do during the week, because they're not going out, is they focus on them. Yes, you get the kind of the big face kind of productions. But at the weekends they're out and about and they're showing you where they're going. It's much more interesting. On the rather like Blab, there's a big divide. You've got the social periscopers, which can be a bit it's very narcissistic, but it's also a bit weird. I have observed. I'm just going to be candid with you. I have observed that the young ladies get a lot of attention. The ones that put makeup on, etc. And it's not very nice attention in some respects. It's quite disrespectful.
Really?
But then rescuing that, because I was starting to get a bit fed up with it. But then I noticed the big guns in terms of social media are on there, and they draw their crowd. So somehow they're aware of it, probably through Twitter, and they all appear on Periscope to watch Kim Gast, people like that, So, so there is a business market out there, and I'm just formulating my own strategy. I won't divulge that today because I'd rather have it clear in my head first.
I think Periscope, has a more obvious business strategy right now than Snapchat does.
Mhm.
And again, it depends on your audience. I think Periscope has a much broader demographic than Snapchat does.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can be notified through the Periscope app when people you follow are live. So, you'll be notified. I don't know. I don't seem to get notifications for Snapchat if somebody has, or if somebody's just not sending me anything, which is entirely
No,
possible.
and that's it. That's the only time you'd get a notification is if
Oh,
they sent
okay.
you something, because you're not like, I'm logged in all the time, but I'm not necessarily live, right? So if I
Right.
send you a snap, that's a one and done, you'll get that notification. But when you go to Periscope is a little different because you can search for people, don't have to have their exact name, and you can go to Periscope and just see who's live, very similar to Blab, where you
Yes.
can come to Blab and just sort of see what's going on and jump in. Periscope works similarly, where you just the little that I've played with it. I think I was someone was hanging out at a bar, just there, and it wasn't. You're right. It wasn't forward facing. It wasn't all about them. It was about where they were.
Yeah.
And I watched for a little while, and I didn't really understand the attraction. Like, why would I be sitting here watching you and what you're doing where you are? But
Voyeuristic.
whatever demographic. I mean, if it was a place I wanted to be and my friends were there and I could, be virtually part of it, that's kind of cool.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, Periscope, I've seen like almost mini webinars where she talked for 10 minutes
Yes.
about social media and then it was over and people were able to ask questions and people were able to give her the little hearts and all that. Actually, I was at an event where I was seeing it live and someone was broadcasting via Periscope. So I went to Periscope to see what it looked like. I know, I'm trying to do both. I went to Periscope to see what what their angle was, and to sort of participate that way. And so there's definitely, I think, more flexibility with Periscope than there is
Agreed.
with Snapchat.
Agreed.
Also, I think Periscope
Agreed.
could lend itself very well to storytelling, and it will be that route that I'm pursuing.
Yep. No, I could totally see that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that allows for replays. I don't believe they disappear. Periscope replays, I don't believe. I can't recall.
They do after 24 hours, but you can catch me.
Okay, they do too.
But you can, I think you can record them.
Yes.
And post them, because I watched.
Yes.
I watched one somewhere.
Yes.
Yes.
I watched it online, and it was a Periscope recording.
Save it to your phone, I believe. I haven't actually done one yet. I'm building up to that. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to take a look at that too sometime.
Yeah, we have quite the to-do list for all these platforms, and sure there'll be a new one coming out before we've mastered everything that's already there.
I don't think you could ever master any of them. They all change so quickly.
That's true. You know what? I'm on board with that. Yeah.
Yeah. We're just playing at somebody else's sandbox.
I did the best I could today with this platform.
Yeah, exactly. And that's got to be good enough.
My husband's favorite phrase: "Good is good enough."
Sometimes it is.
Not very often for me.
I know.
Guys, I can smell dinner is almost ready, so I'm going to say goodbye.
What are we having? What are we having tonight?
It's fish fingers, chips, and peas. It's a very simple thing, but it'll keep it going.
Be there in 6 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
See you guys.
Nice to see you again.
Take care,
Dropping
Steve.
by.
Be well.
And with that, we are ahead of the hour. So good timing there. We are B2B R&D together. When do twins unite? There you go. Good timing there, Craig.
Sorry.
So, thanks for joining our Blab. We talk about digital marketing, basically random topics. We never have an exact agenda, and we welcome people to come on board and ask questions and join the conversation. I'm Ellen Williams, CEO of B2B R&D, and this is...
And I'm Craig Yaris, COO of B2B R&D, and we thank you for joining us.
See you next time.